Joe, the service manager, asked Chet to track down a water leak in the door area of a two-door sedan. But Chet's new at this, and it looks like he'll need some help.
Hey, Chet, you're supposed to check this car for a water leak, not wash it down.
Well, I figured the best way to find a water leak was to turn the hose on the car and give it the works.
That'll get water through a leaky spot, all right, but it'll run all over, and you won't be able to tell where it's getting in. Let's dry this job off and start over again.
Okay, Joe. Show me how it's done.
Before you do any testing, look over the leak area for obvious things like a loose, torn, or distorted weather strip, gaps, or holes which common sense tells you should be closed up or sealed. After a rainstorm, dried road splash leaves traces that can help you pinpoint a leak. Also, look for signs of surface rust, which may indicate an open body seam. And, as part of your inspection, check the alignment of the door to see how well it fits in the opening. If the door's not lined up properly, or the striker needs resetting, it's hard to get a good seal. Where a door is properly fitted, the weather strip compresses slightly when the door is closed. This allows the weather strip edge to make firm, even contact all around the door opening, so it can maintain a good seal without being flattened or crushed. All that I've said about doors also goes for checking deck lid and tailgate weather strips. Always begin by looking for the obvious, especially where a car has had body repairs or glass has been replaced.
All right, Joe. I'm sold on inspection. But what about water testing?
It's a good test for weather strip sealing, and it's the only practical way to check for leaks around windshields, rear windows, or at body seams. But there's a right way to do it. You only need a small stream of water to find a leak. If you use too much pressure, the water can force past even a good-fitting weather strip. It can also splash all over the area, so you'll have trouble finding the source of the leak. Actually, the test procedure is easy. Remove the hose nozzle and hold the pressure down to get about a 3-inch stream. Then ask a helper to sit inside the car and watch for water while you work the hose around the gap at the door edge on the outside. Start your check at the lower edge of the door and then work upward. If you begin water testing at the top, the runoff will wet the untested area and can make a leak hard to find.
What are you supposed to watch for on the inside?
If the weather strip doesn't seal properly, it's easy to see where the water comes in at the door edge. On some models, you'll have to pull back the wind cord to spot a leak. Now, there may be more than one leak, so correct any leaks you find in lower areas before you test higher. Be sure to dry the suspected area and clean it up so any cement you use in leak correction will stick tight. We'll talk about fixing leaks later on. Now, if the weather strip's okay, run water along the side windows at the belt line and check the inside trim panels for dampness. This water normally runs out of the door and body drains, but if the plastic water shield under the trim is torn, missing, or not properly tucked into the bottom slot, the trim can get soaked.
Do you check the deck lid weather strip from the inside like the door seal?
Right. A man with a light inside the compartment can easily spot water coming in. Or in the dark, he may be able to see outside light through gaps or holes. If the weather strip's okay, check for leaks in areas around the deck lid and carefully flow water into the channel around the opening. Watch inside for leaks at body seams in the channel. Look closely at the joints in the compartment opening corners. And while you're at it, run water along the bottom of the rear window and up the sides to check the window seal and body joints, especially at the corners. You may have to remove trim moldings to pinpoint a leak in this area. Now, moving down to the tail lights, once again watch inside the luggage compartment for water leaks. Keep an eye on the attaching studs and screws. Also make sure there's no water inside the tail light assembly. On some body models, unsealed body seams may let water or dust accumulate in tail light enclosures or quarter panel extensions. These accumulations can get into the luggage compartment, and of course, trapped water can cause rusting from the inside.
And where you have leaks in the luggage compartment, be sure to check for water in the spare wheel well. If water collects in the well, it can cause rusting or a musty smell.
Thank you, Tech. Now for suburban models. Tailgate water testing is the same as for other weather strip checks. And as with doors or deck lids, the tailgate must be correctly aligned for good sealing. On models which do not have the door gate, inspect the body seam lip at the bottom of the tailgate opening. If the lip is distorted or bent downward, the bottom weather strip will also be out of position and probably will not seal properly. Up in front, the water test can be used to check for leaks at body seams, corner joints, bolt and plug holes. Pay close attention to body seams in the sides of the cowl section which are hidden by the fenders, and make sure the antenna lead-in grommet is in place. In some cases, you'll have to remove inside trim panels in suspected leak areas to see where the water's coming in. It may also be necessary to remove heater or air conditioner parts to locate leaks in the plenum area. On the outside, the windshield seal is tested with a low-pressure stream. And as with the rear window, you may have to remove trim moldings to locate leak points. We'll talk about high-pressure windshield leaks when we get to leak correction.
Don't be fooled by body joints or openings which may be only part-way closed by mastic sealer. Just remember that the sealer must completely close the opening, or water may get in. Play it safe by resealing any doubtful spots.
Good points, Tech. And that reminds me to talk about checking floor pan and dash panel plugs. Don't forget that a lot of water or dust can get in if any of these plugs are loose or missing.
It's usually not practical to water test for underbody or wheel housing leaks. The best way to go after these is to remove the rear seat cushion so you can look for rusty edges or other traces of leaks at body seams.
If the carpet or mat gets soggy in front of the rear seat cushion, the leak may actually be up higher in the window area. Make sure the plastic water shield is properly installed in its slot at the bottom so it will deflect water to the drains.
A lot of master technicians like to use the water test because it's easy to do, and they can quickly retest the job after they've made adjustments or repairs. Now, why don't you tell us about using chalk and other leak testing methods, Joe?
Well, the chalk test is easy and it's dry. Simply open the door and rub soft carpenter's chalk on the sealing surface of the weather strip all the way around. Incidentally, hard blackboard chalk doesn't go on as easily and may not leave a good contact mark. With the chalk applied, close the door in the normal manner and then reopen it. The chalk should transfer to the body contact surface in an unbroken line if the seal's okay. If the chalk test shows low spots at body joints around the door opening, it may be necessary to build up these points to get a good seal. Level any low spots with plastic solder and paint the repaired area if necessary. The chalk will also show up high spots on the door opening contact surface. These may be lumps of solder or body seam overlaps. In either case, the raised spots must be smoothed down and repainted. Where gaps of sizable length show up on the chalk test, especially on older model cars, we may have to move the weather strip slightly so it can make good contact in the door opening. If chalking the upper window weather strip of hardtop and convertible models doesn't work too well, you can use paper instead. Clamp a narrow strip of flexible paper between the strip and the glass at several places. If the paper pulls out easily, you found a possible leak. However, on these models, a poor chalk line impression at the front pillar weather strip can mean that you will have to reposition the vent wing frame and realign the door glass.
Now, hold it right there, Joe. If someone will kindly reposition the record on its other side, Joe will continue with his chalk talk.
The chalk test also works well on deck lid and tailgate weather strips. But just like doors, their alignment must be correct before any leak test will mean anything. Now we'll switch from chalk to making a leak test with powder. Here again, the test is simple. All you need is powder and a syringe to blow it in around the door, deck lid, or tailgate edges. You can use talcum or some other fine dusting powder which will cling to painted body surfaces. Blow the powder between the weather strip and the edge of the door, deck lid, or tailgate, all around. If it leaves an unbroken line around the outside of the weather strip, the seal is good. However, traces of powder inside the weather strip or on its contact surface will show you where the strip does not seal properly. The powder test sometimes shows up leak causes which are not easy to spot with the water or chalk tests.
After you test with powder or chalk, be sure to clean up the test area so the customer won't be bothered with messed up clothes or upholstery. Now, how about some information on wind noise leaks, Joe?
First of all, today's cars are a lot quieter overall, so noise which wasn't noticed before can now be very disturbing. But you have to work within the limits of what's practical or possible. Surprising as it may seem, most wind noise is caused by air leaking out of the car. You see, when doors and windows are closed and the cowl vents are open, forward motion of the car pressurizes the car interior. As a matter of fact, with the fresh air inlet doors open, air can enter the car interior faster than it can leave, so pressure builds up inside the car. Actually, on hardtop models, you'll notice that the side windows may lose contact with the roof rail weather strip a bit at the top when the body is pressurized, especially at higher speeds. But if the body is properly sealed, pressurizing the interior will not cause troublesome wind noises. However, any seal which does not make good contact can let the pressurized air force its way out in an area which causes objectionable noise. Now, in the opposite direction, where wind noise is caused by air forcing its way into the car, we usually find a gap or poor sealing condition, which is often the same as one which allows drafts, dust, and water to enter. A third kind of wind noise is the result of wind turbulence outside the car. This noise can be caused by loose moldings, moldings with protruding ends, gaps between trim moldings and rubber sealing strips, or incomplete drip rail sealing. In some cases, turbulence noise has been traced to the radio antenna, radiator grill, and even open bolt holes or spaces which cause a pop bottle whistling sound as wind passes over them. So as with water and dust leak testing, our first step in wind noise diagnosis is a quick inspection for the obvious: door and glass alignment, weather strip condition, poor molding fit, and open holes or gaps. When these are all in order, a road test will help you determine whether additional work is needed. Try to make the test in a low-traffic, open area where you can drive the car up to cruising speeds. This will let you check the effect of driving into and away from the wind, and also whether the noise changes when the wind is on opposite sides of the car. To begin the test, push the antenna down and close the doors and windows tightly. Make sure the radio and any blowers are shut off. Close heater or air conditioner air inlets and open the fresh air inlet doors so body pressure can build up, and start your test run. If you get the noise only when the air inlet doors are open, the sound is probably caused by outgoing air. This kind of noise may also vary as the car speeds up or slows down.
I get the idea. And if you get the noise when the air inlet doors are closed, air's coming into the car.
Right, and where air's leaking in, the noise will be loudest on the windy side. Also, you may be able to feel an air draft if the leak is bad.
If opening and closing the fresh air doors has no effect on the noise, it's probably caused by turbulence outside the car and may be hard to find. Right now, you can tell us how to locate some wind leak noise sources, Joe.
Well, experience shows that most causes of wind noise can be found in upper areas on the car sides to about a foot below the belt line, or across the windshield. Now, where leaks around the vent wing area are concerned, you can pinpoint a noise source by first isolating the outside weather strip surface in the vent area with balls of mastic sealer between the weather strip and the door lip. On the inside, seal the space between the windshield pillar and the door with masking tape. Also, tape the sealing surface of the vent wing all around and test drive the car. If the noise is gone, hold the same car speed and slowly pull the tape away from the pillar. Should the noise come in at some point as the tape is pulled, the source is nearby, probably in the pillar weather strip area. Where no wind noise is noticed when all the tape is removed from the pillar, repeat the same process and slowly pull the tape away from the vent wing. As soon as the noise sounds off, you're close to the source.
In some cases, you may find the noise source more easily by using a length of small diameter hose as a noise pickup. Move the free end of the hose around the vent area and listen for the sound at the other end.
One more way to check for wind noise leaks is to pressurize the car when it's standing still. You close the doors and windows tight, set the blower on high and the controls on defrost. Fresh air inlet doors must be closed so the pressure can build up. Be sure to start the engine so there'll be vacuum to move the air damper doors to defroster position. Then check outside the car for escaping air around door and window edges. Remember, some air will escape even with proper sealing, but the amount should be limited. Your main concern should be with checking for leaks in the upper area of the body, which we've already discussed. Be sure to check the rear quarter window area of two-door models and rear door sealing at the C-post of four-door sedans and hardtops.
That just about rounds up leak testing. Now, how about a few tips on sealing?
Okay, let's start at the top. Look for voids or pinholes in the drip rail sealant. Water can enter a small hole and run under the sealant and get into the car at a body seam. For leaks in windshield and rear window areas, first remove the trim moldings. Then seal between the rubber sealing strip and body or glass as needed with semi-liquid sealer and water test before the moldings are installed. This treatment usually corrects high-pressure leaks which allow water in during windy storms. Where cemented glass is used, leaky spots may be hidden by trim moldings, especially at the bottom and corners. Remove the molding and dry the area. Then apply a coating of semi-liquid cement over the leak area and water test before installing the moldings. In some cases, you may find water leaking past a loose molding retainer screw or through small holes at the windshield or rear window body joints. These leaks can be found by flowing on water and then applying air pressure at the corners. At fixed rear quarter windows, you can usually get a weather-tight seal between body metal and the molded weather strip by the use of semi-liquid sealer under the weather strip edge all around. If this treatment doesn't work, you may have to remove the window and weather strip from the body opening to inspect body seams and corner joints for unsealed openings. Be sure all old sealer is cleaned off the body metal and weather strip before the glass is installed.
Sedan door weather strip should be cemented only along the edge below the inner lip. The lip should contact the door surface smoothly without distortion or puckers. Below the door belt line, the weather strip is held in place by fasteners instead of cement. And on hardtops, the door glass must be in light contact with the upper weather strip, with a molded line on the strip showing when the window's closed. Don't try to make the glass edge force itself into the groove between the weather strip edges.
Now for a general wrap-up, here's a display of the various body and weather strip sealing materials and tools you'll find useful for stopping leaks and sealing out water, dust, and wind. Use them as indicated in your service manuals. And finally, make sure that you clean up the glass, weather strips, or other places which have been cemented or sealed. There's nothing like sealer smeared on the glass or paint to make a customer suspect you've done a sloppy job.
Joe has just given us the story on tracking down water, dust, and wind leaks. He's also mentioned some good tips on body sealing. But the main thing all you master technicians should remember is the common sense approach that takes the mystery out of a body leak diagnosis. Don't forget that good fitting doors and glass are important. So follow the alignment instructions in your service manuals. Be sure to check your reference book for this session for extra sealing tips and hints that may help you lick a tough one. See you all next month.